It's me.
We're going to call the council meeting to order. Everybody stand for the pledge, please. Everybody got the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, take the roll.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Alms.
Here.
DeZiel. Weber.
Here.
Bruck. Here. Hall. Here.
All right, so everybody, as you can see, we have a new venue, and this is temporary, while the council chambers and other areas of City Hall are under reconstruction. So, was it 2 meetings here?
Yep. We'll be both meetings.
Yep, so we'll have 2 meetings here, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here in the fire station.
Chief isn't here, huh? Maybe we should just keep it up here.
Relocate him. All right, first thing is public hearing on conditional use permit application for an accessory building in the front yard setback and for accessory building to exceed 1,000 square feet at 1864 River Ridge Road, Brian and Sarah Zeller. So this is a public hearing. Please keep your comments as concise as possible. Try not to repeat other people's comments. And for those people zooming in, again, this is a public hearing. Please, if you have a comment, just, I think that you can wave on Zoom and just chime on in, because I can't see you, so just chime in. So this is a public hearing. Brian, on your request. So are there any comments? Any comments? Any comments?
Move to close.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Public hearing is closed. Discussion possible action on a conditional use permit application for an accessory building in the front yard setback and for accessory building to exceed 1,000 square feet at 1864 River Ridge Road, Brian and Sarah Zeller.
I'll move we approve.
Second.
A motion and second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity for people to talk about issues that are not on the agenda. Once again, please keep your comments as concise as possible. Try not to repeat. And having said that, is there anyone here that has a citizen comment? Any comments? Any comments? Any comments? Close that portion of the agenda. Consent agenda.
Approve the meeting minutes from August 16th, 2021 regular council meeting. Approve council claims in the amount of $583,580.37. Approve secondhand dealer mall flea market license to Nostalgia at 1901 Ward Avenue, Suite 202. Order public hearing for final special assessments related to the 2020 sidewalk replacement project. Approve certificate of compliance for Wolfie's Butcher Shop and Deli at 210 Locust Street, Anthony and Shanna Blanco. Approve Bomar appraisal assessment contract. And approve the drainage and utility easement agreement at 102 Heritage Boulevard for Carlos and Carrie, I don't know how to say it, Becerra.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
Alms?
Yes.
DeZiel?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Bruck?
Yes.
Hall.
Motion is approved. Consent agenda is approved. Discussion of possible action on requiring masks in city-owned facilities.
Aaron, did you want to?
I can start off. This was
Okay.
requested at the past meeting by Councilmember Bruck. And I have in my memo just the comment that I did discuss this with our front desk staff, who would be the ones that mostly dealt with people coming in. They would prefer not to. It can be a rather contentious issue, as we all know right now. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, but it is. And so they would rather not have to deal with asking people to do that, as sometimes just the simple asking can cause some heightened responses. So with that, our staff would prefer not. But again, this is obviously a council policy decision. I'm just weighing in on, after talking with our front desk staff, what they would prefer. And as we move forward with our City Hall project, if you have a chance to look, we're almost there with our new front desk layout. We're waiting for the countertops to come in, because as with everything, they're delayed about a month, but they should be in with the next week or so. When they go in, we put in a full plexiglass barrier, which also would very much help as far as our staff separation. But again, like I said, this is a council policy decision, so I'll leave it with that as far as our staff comment.
I like the idea of the recommendation, and I will move to do so.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Discussion?
I would like to add some points to that. I still feel that we have a responsibility to look at this from a value base, and our values are that people matter, and that we have a responsibility to protect our employees and to protect the people that come into our city-owned buildings. And we have a responsibility to honor what the St. Croix County Public Health has asked us to do, which is until we are below a substantial risk. And at the present moment, we are high in the county. And the minute we are below that substantial, I am totally 100% on board with making it recommended. I think a recommendation is falling short of our responsibility to do our part in our community.
I wanted to make mention that I had the pleasure of doing jury duty a couple of weeks ago. So I was at the county offices, and this was after the last meeting, before this meeting. And they had it as a recommended signage. I didn't see any staff really wearing masks. So I guess my thinking in seconding, or doing a second on Mr. Morsett's motion, was really in relation to what the county is doing and kind of taking them as a cue. And so I see doing as a recommendation basically what they're doing at the county building. I don't know if you've seen anything, if anybody else has seen anything recent at the county building. Okay.
That's what I've seen when I've been there.
Gotcha.
So how many of the staff wear masks? What percentage do you think?
Zero, I
Zero?
think, right now,
Okay.
yes. And, obviously, we've put it out to staff that if there is anyone that feels uncomfortable, things like that, that we will require of our office staff, if we have someone in the office, is not feeling comfortable or anything like that, and nobody requested that we add it. Because we were more than willing to do that on the internal wise with our staff, because we can definitely control that. But it was not requested by anyone.
With working at Northwood Technical College, most of the staff wears a mask, but the students, the healthcare students do, or many of them do, but most of the rest of the ones do not. So, and they said that they didn't want to get into a compliance issue. So they were their wording was masks are expected, but they're not enforcing it. So I think that with the difficulty of it at this point, it's probably a better recommend than require.
This is a hard one, and I've gone back and forth, but I agree with Sarah that I think we have a responsibility in our publicly owned buildings to keep people safe. Unfortunately, too many citizens have decided not to be vaccinated, and as a result, we're prolonging the pandemic. We're not out of the pandemic, and the Delta variant is here, and I think it would be prudent to follow the St. Croix County health guidelines, even if they're not following them themselves, because we should take them seriously. So I would like to see a requirement, but I would like to see it flexible based on the St. Croix County guidelines. So as numbers drop, we would lift that restriction. If numbers hold or go up, we would keep that restriction. But I think we owe it to our people. The other thing I want to say is, anybody under the age of 12, they don't have a choice. They cannot get the vaccine. They are the most vulnerable people in our society. It used to be the older folks, and now it's the kids. And we have a responsibility to keep those kids safe, whether they're coming in. I don't know if their parents come in for meetings. The other thing I want to say is I appreciate the staff at City Hall, and I understand that, but City Hall is not our only publicly owned building. Is that correct? Correct. So it's a city policy. I just think if the county is saying the numbers are high enough that they're saying you should be masked indoors, as much as I hate wearing this mask, and I hate wearing it tonight, I'll admit it, I'm doing it because that's what the county is requiring, or that's what the county health policy, that's literally what they're telling us right now. So I think it has to be a requirement, but I don't want to see it as a permanent thing. I want to see it flexible. So the motion would have to be tied to the levels of the St. Croix County health, what is it called, health office, or I don't know if I'm getting the language right for that, so.
Yeah. And that is totally where I am at too, and like you, I'm not a fan of wearing this either, but I am doing it to try and do my part as well. And I think as leaders and people that work in our city are leaders as well, I think we have a responsibility to set the example, but I also think we have a responsibility to keep the people that come to our places safe, to know that we've done everything we can, because as a value, people matter.
I'll just say, in keeping in line with St. Croix County, and the fundamental issue is choice, and the parents and adults have the choice to do what they feel comfortable doing. It's not for government to get involved with that. So the recommendation does just what you guys are asking to do and protecting. So with that, I would restate my motion as well, is to highly recommend mask. I mean, I wear a mask when I'm supposed to as well. I just got back from Madison, wore a mask. I'm vaccinated. So the point is it's a choice, and I'm not going to tell kids that they can and can't do. That's their parents' job. So that's where I'm coming from.
And I can say from the front desk staff, we do get calls asking if masks are required, and we say it's recommended. We don't say yes or no to avoid the conflict, because it is a lot on the front desk staff to deal with an angry citizen over a mask.
And I understand that. I think a lot of us probably in our work setting totally understand and know how hard that discussion is.
Anybody else? All right, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Could you restate the motion, please?
I move we recommend face requiring in all public City Hudson buildings.
And I'm a nay because I don't think that's strong enough.
All right, I think we're going to do a roll call on this.
Morissette,
Yes.
Alms,
Yes.
DeZiel,
No,
Weber,
No.
Brooke,
No.
Paul.
No.
All right, motion fails.
I would make a motion that we require wearing masks at all city facilities as long as the St. Croix County health guidelines warrant it.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion's approved. Discussion of possible action on attendance at North Hudson Water Agreement meetings.
This was also an agenda item that was brought up, or an item that was brought up for discussion after our last meeting. Councilmember Hall had made the request for this, and so I think I said in my memo, it's a lot of people for these meetings, but obviously staff is open to whatever the council would like to do with it.
Well, I'm wondering if you misinterpreted. I'm just saying, in the interest of, transparent government and making sure that, for particularly the Public Utilities Commission and city council members know that when these meetings are going to be occurring, where, and have the option to show up. That's what I really would like to see. So I will make the motion to direct staff to invite the Public Utilities Commission, the city council members, and the River Channel, and make sure that the River Channel knows when this is going to these meetings.
And I will second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Discussion?
So Joyce, just to be clear, it's an invitation, and is it not an expectation?
No, it's not an expectation.
Okay.
It's so that we know when these meetings are happening, so that if we want to attend, then we should let Aaron know that we really want to attend, and then let him know our availability for the times that he's bringing up. But if you're not interested in attending, then you don't have to worry about it. But,
Okay.
I know that being the person from the council, that representing the council on the Public Utilities Commission, I would prefer to attend to these and know ahead of time that they're going on. And I think that some of the Public Utilities Commission members would probably want to know too. So it's just it's an invitation, not an expectation.
So it's like an open government thing, is what you're saying?
Yes,
It's a communication.
exactly.
It's a
Mhm.
communication
It's a
thing.
communication issue. Mhm.
Okay.
On that point, though, if the meeting is going to be open to the council to attend, then it will have to be noticed as a public meeting. And then those meetings, and I'm not sure whether they were intended to be private or whether they were intended to be public, whether they were intended to be subject to open records or not subject to open records. But if there is a majority of the council that's invited to attend, then the meetings are subject to open records and open meeting requirements. So everybody's aware.
Which I think they should be.
Yeah.
There's really
That's why
no
I
reason
suggested
for
the
them
River
to
Channel.
not be subject to all open meeting requirements.
So, are we talking about contract negotiations here?
No, we're talking about the meetings that are that are required in the contract.
So we just have the quarterly meetings that are in the agreement that just discuss how the agreement's going, things like that. Now, if there's some sort of dispute or something like that, then we would have to probably look at somehow closed sessions and things like that with it. I guess I'm not sure what will come out of it, because we've never done it before, so I don't know. But yeah, I can see a time where if there are some semblance of dispute or something that we want to discuss with it, we may have to look at somehow going closed session with them, but, I don't know. We'd have to cross that bridge when we come to it. I just don't know.
Okay. Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on changing mayor's term of office to 3 years.
Aaron, is that you and I? I mean, you guys heard the last meeting, or I can't remember if it was 2 meetings ago. Again, I just thought we can do it either way. It's just kind of a structural thing. The arguments for doing it would be kind of constitutionally, you want to stagger different sort of elected terms like the founders of the country wanted, just to have some stability as well as electoral responsiveness to the voters. So that's where I'm coming from with the 3 years versus 2 years. And then the second piece was just kind of a more equitable approach to if there were council members in whatever districts in the future wanted to run. I think it just makes their lives a little bit easier, and it gives the people of Hudson just probably a little more chance or a little more opportunity to have a wider field of candidates. Not that they can't run, apparently, if they hold the office, but I just don't think that's probably a good strategy for anybody. So those are my 2 cents. Again, I don't think this is live or die. This is not life or death. This is just preference on how you want to run the city. So with that, I would motion to change the mayor's term from 2 years to 3 years for the city of Hudson, starting in the 2022 election. Am I getting my years right?
The next one?
In April, yeah.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Could you clarify for me that you would be able to run in District 2, District 3, and District, what is it, 4? That you would be able to run for both mayor and the seat, how that would all play out?
You can file for both, and your name would be on the ballot for both. So you'd have to campaign for both, do that, and then if you won both,
Right.
you'd have to, I think, pick which
Rescind
one you
one.
want, basically.
Correct. You cannot hold both offices.
Correct.
But you can run for both offices
Yep.
under Wisconsin law.
And is that a different, like, campaign report then, or is that, are the finances
Yes, you'd have to have
commingled?
two separate. Everything
Okay.
would have to be all separate. So you'd have to have separate financial reporting, separate, as your donations come in, it would have to be either for your council seat or the mayor seat, and you have to file multiple reports and things like that, yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
So that does spread that opportunity around by moving to a 3-year term,
Correct.
which I think is to me is, I would like to have seen ours at 3-year terms because every other year is kind of a pain, but it does make sense from that perspective of providing that opportunity to the people who are on the council.
And my perspective on it is if the elected official is carrying out the will of the people that they serve, it's kind of a moot point in my opinion, so.
Anybody else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
2 opposed?
Correct.
Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on application for exemption from county library tax, Resolution 16-21.
So this was discussed at finance, but basically the city does this every year to apply for our exemption so that we can continue to fund the library in the way we have. Councilmember Hall brought up that this is also something that's being discussed at the county because the city has been looking at ways that we can better fund our library. Right now, we do have some restrictions with how much we can really legitimately contribute as a city and then also our partners as well. And one of those main issues is that for the cities and the towns and the villages, anything that we levy for the library does count towards our levy limits. But at the county level, it does not count towards theirs. So we've been having conversations with the county about a possible new structure on how to fund the joint library. And we've gotten some opinion from the state, but we're waiting for the most important opinion, which is from the Department of Revenue. So while we may be able to come up with a new way to do this, we're not sure it's feasible yet. We're not sure it's even legal yet necessarily, as far as interpretation goes on the state level. So for now, we want to do this like we do every year. But if we can work out a better way to raise more revenue for our library, we will be bringing this back to the council for further discussion. This possibly may be rescinded and replaced with something else. But at this point, we have a deadline that we have to still get this into the county to meet our exemption requirement.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second?
Motion and second to suspend the rules. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
Alms?
Yes.
DeZiel?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Motion's approved. Rules are suspended.
Move to adopt Resolution 16-21.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action regarding development of a 2022 to 2026 infrastructure capital improvement plan.
I think you just sit right in front, Dean, that's fine. We'll pick you up with the owl, I think.
Good evening, council members. This item is on the agenda from the Public Works Committee we discussed there. So really the reason for this on the agenda, it's a little bit out of our usual order for developing CIPs and whatnot. Usually that happens kind of at the beginning of each year. Thank you. However, staff has kind of learned of some grant opportunities that we're looking to pursue for some projects on some of our arterial streets that we feel would fit in well with the grant opportunities and how they're described and everything. However, the catch is that these projects have to be identified in an approved CIP. And those grant applications are due, one due in the middle of October and a couple more due in January, kind of before our usual CIP time. So in order to apply for those, and we feel that we should, to be able to make the best use of the money that's out there, we developed this capital improvement plan to have that, so that we can move forward with those. There's a bunch of projects listed in there. Me and Mike Mraz kind of have talked through it. We brought it to Public Works Committee. There's discussion and some comments on stuff, and we tweaked stuff here and there with that. And so here we are bringing it forward here tonight. So we're looking to adopt that CIP tonight, so that we're able to include that with the grant applications, particularly the one coming up on October 15th. So the budget amounts that you'll see in the local funding column of each of those years in the CIP matches the budget that was shown at the second meeting in July, when we were talking about the transportation utility or extra bonding, whatever discussion for the next few years or something. So we kind of matched that to that discussion. Depending on the outcome, obviously we still have a lot of discussion and things to figure out with that. Depending on the outcome of that, it could be more, it could be less, could be different, whatever. At that time, we can tweak this again to match that, but we wanted to make sure we had something showing these projects in there. And then, yeah, we can always change it again later. So that's where we're at with this.
Dean, I got a couple questions.
Yeah.
One, I've been talking for a better part of 5 years about the 11th Street Bridge. You don't have that in there. The other is Green Street, which you yourself at our last few meetings said is based on a PACER rating of 1, or now you're going to put it out 4 or 5 years. To me, that's not acceptable.
So obviously with these budget levels, there are difficult discussions to have based on those exact things. Particularly Green Street, there's definitely need, as we've discussed with streets like that. There's lots of others that are like that. Green Street is one of the worst ones like that, but there are others out there. You'll see in the list of projects on there that most of the streets that we are hitting with this CIP are more major streets. And so if we wanted to look at improving streets like Green Street, either some more trafficked street has to get kicked off, or the budget has to go up, essentially. And that can happen either way, but that's kind of just the reality. We felt that.
It is just a plan, too.
Yeah.
I mean, we can definitely, we can add the green and the 11th to the plan.
Yep.
It's not locked, as we know with the CIP, it doesn't lock us in, but it gets us planning for it at least. And we can start to try to figure out the financing and things like that, and keep Dean applying and things, so.
That's lip service. I mean, most of the time, those things are going to get dropped in between the cracks.
Yep.
And I'm not prepared to let my constituents, just because you say there's other important streets, tell my taxpayers on Green Street that.
Well, and we know we've heard a bunch
Yeah.
with the green, that's for sure. What was the total green? I mean, I think,
It was reconstructing, which
Yep.
is what it really needs, it was 625, I believe, or
Yep.
something like that.
So I would say at this point, when I looked at this, I kind of thought you might maybe question that one. I definitely think
That's the
that,
shirt, I wore green.
I think as we look at
That was
this,
for the big victory the other night.
I think as we look at this, I was thinking that in 2023, we could add green to it. And at least then next year, when we start talking, because we have to talk next year about the 2023 CIP cycle, because that's our next bonding cycle. We just bonded this year for 21 and 22. So we'll be talking again next year for the 23-24 cycle. So I think we could put it in on 23 and then have that discussion next year when we look at really finalizing that about does this one, do we stick this one or not? We'll let you fight for it as that comes up there, but I don't see a problem with putting that one in there.
Because there's things on here that don't need to be addressed in the next year. So Bella Rosa development or any, the Tower Road, we just did that.
Yep. There are a number of things that we can always be flexible with. So I would feel comfortable if we dropped that in 2023, the green. And now the 11th Street, we did not put that one in there just because we're not done with the engineering study and stuff, right? That's correct.
Yep.
So we didn't add that only because we don't have the engineering work done, which is in this CIP that we're paying for now to do that project, or to do the engineering work on it. Once we get the actual numbers, we are going to plug it in. That's not going to not be in this.
Yep.
But at this point, we didn't want to speculate until we got that engineering study back.
Right.
So that will end up in here. And again, we will be adopting this. If you remember, we did an abbreviated CIP because of COVID and all that stuff. We wanted to focus on a few main things. And we said we're going to come back with a big one. And that's what, in July, when Dean and Mike came forward with the whole concept of here's all the streets we have, the issues. We'd like to look at other funding opportunities like a transportation utility, like a wheel tax, which we're doing our outreach on right now, to try to bring that back to the council here sooner than later to have that discussion. So, so what I would say, with this one is that we can, if we approve, add Green Street to 2023. Know that 11th is coming once we get the engineering work done, but also know that we will have this conversation in depth next year for the 2023-24 cycle, because we're going to actually have to do the bonding for it. So I can't promise, because Green's in there, that it'll get there. I can't promise that anything that's in here will get into it. That's a council decision to be had next year when we do the full process for the bonding cycle again. But I'm comfortable having it in there.
Though, as they deteriorate, as bad as Green Street has, this needs to be flexible.
Yep. When would I would agree? If others have it with their deterioration of their streets and things, I would agree that we may add things. This is not locked in stone. If we do it today, we may definitely add more things to others that bring something up that we'll look at.
Well, I've been asking for Fillmore Hill for quite a few years. And then also I've been asking for Oak Street. The safety issues on Oak Street are behind the high school are a huge problem.
Yep.
And
like
they
I
need to be
said,
addressed.
I would not have a problem looking at those, getting those added in as well
Okay.
for the 2023 cycle. No, I don't have an
Right.
issue with that whatsoever.
Really, we just need a plan that shows these projects that we really want to apply for, and particularly 22 is important because,
Okay.
that's the budget. We still have, we're still in that bonding cycle right now, or will be, in 22. So in that particular 22 is a important year. And
So
then,
what I would recommend is let's add Green and Joyce. I would actually be happy to add yours on the 23 as well. We'll pencil those numbers in as well. Just knowing that we're going to have to go through this process and really look hard at it. But you're right, Randy. Once they're in there, it does help us to focus on them more. And I agree with that, because I know that we've had some that are really outstanding. So I think with those additions, I think we should try to keep it moving if we can, because we do want to apply for these funds.
When do we expect the engineering study to be done on the bridge?
probably early 22. It's
Early 22?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I want to take this up. I mean, that's, to me, right now, that's our top priority. With Carmichael the way it is, and we're going to be adding even more pressure on Carmichael, and knowing that the state isn't going to be looking at doing anything for restructuring of that bridge until at least 2040, we need to take care of that other access to get to both sides of the freeway. And I want to take that up. I want a date specific. And I would say the moment that engineering study comes in, we need to get this resolved.
Well, that was our plan, is as soon as that engineering study is done, we were going to run it through Public Works, then bring it to council, as far as, hey, this is done, when do we want to move on it? Because we also talked about, we may do an interim bonding cycle, just because we did a more reduced bonding cycle this 2021, 2022. But when that comes forward early next year, the council may decide to do one interim bonding cycle to get that project going. So that's a possibility. So yes, I would agree. As soon as that study's done, we'll bring it through Public Works and council.
So one thing that I'll add, sorry, why I came up here is, once we start talking about the 2023-2024 bonding cycle, we will have a pretty good idea whether or not we receive those grants that we've applied for, because we won't start talking about that to the fall, right? So, whether it's Carmichael, whatever grant we do apply for, we will know if we did get it or not, and whether or not we have to fund that match. If we don't get it, probably not in all likelihood that we're going to go after Carmichael at $4 million. We're going to put that money towards something else. So, I wanted to just mention that too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, as you know, unfortunately, we've had very poor luck in getting funding from the state and federal level for our projects. Hopefully that changes, but if we don't, the money that we have earmarked then would be freed up for some of these other projects that we're adding right now.
Yeah, say for example, if we didn't get Cooley Road in 2023, that money we would look to repurpose for other things, which could allow Green Street to happen, could allow Fillmore Street to happen, could allow many other things to happen. So in reality, yeah, there are things we're not going to get, but we kind of have assumed we're getting them in the CIP. And so once we don't get them, then we'll have to make those conversations about what fills that place, because I don't think we wouldn't do anything with that, what we have already budgeted, so.
I think we need to look back at what our focus has been with a limited amount of dollars that we've been willing to invest or able to invest into street maintenance. We made a policy decision several years ago, let's keep the main streets in decent condition until we can afford to do this. So and that's where we're at. So Green Street, I'd love to see it fixed, but it's not a main street. It doesn't carry that much traffic. So we've been focusing on keeping our streets that carry all the traffic, Vine and Carmichael and Cooley, where I used to live, which I've already forgotten how.
Grandview?
so how short it goes, all right? So in retrospect, I think we've done that. Now, if we want to do something different, we've got this big financial question we've been having and discussion and work that's been done. Let's not forget that. We need to do something about more funds. That's the only way these projects can happen.
Yep, and like I said, that's why we're definitely Dean's doing the public outreach right now on some new funding options, and we will have that back to the council soon with the input, and then you'll also have a hearing on it as well. So we're getting there with that option at least.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, so just to recap, this is kind of an interim thing while we're in the process of applying for grants, and then kind of also waiting for the resolution of the outstanding conversations about the funding levels and transportation utility and all that sort of stuff. So we assume that we're going to have this conversation again many times in the future to nail things down.
So I guess what I would request is that we get this approved, but let's add the Green Street project. Let's add, Joyce, what was your project? I'm sorry again.
Fillmore Hill?
Yep.
And then also Oak Street behind the high school.
Let's add those to 2023 so we can have that discussion and that they're in there and that we know they're there. And that, again, that list can change before 2023, but we know they're there then with this approval. That would be the staff request then.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'd move to approve the CIP plan with the suggestions that the council has talked about here.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion possible action on moving council meeting start times to 6 PM.
Again, not a life or death issue, simply a preference in how you want to do local government. Where this came from was, I've been to some meetings that have gone till 11:50. I think that was my record one. That was a couple years back. We went past 10:30. Was that a month ago? Something like that. We had the closed session. I just don't think any good government happens probably after 9:30 at night. If you're a working person or a teacher like me, you got to get up and work the next morning. We got city staff that has to be here. I just don't see the wisdom in making city staff stay until 10:30 or 11. I thought he was going to yawn there for a second, or 12. So I just think, I think the city staff would be better served. I actually think the public would be better served. I think that we ourselves as council people would be better served. I don't see a lot of downtime to starting at 6, other than I don't know if somebody works a particular job in the Twin Cities or something and can't get the commute time to get back or something. But the more I just thought of that 10:30 meeting, the more I just thought, I don't want to do that again. And if we don't have to do it, why are we doing it? So what if we just move up the meeting, and then if you have a long meeting, you're done at 9:30, as opposed to, the wee hours of the evening. So that's the thought. So with that, I would move to start council meetings at 6 p.m.
So then we would be starting the finance committee meetings at 5:30 or 5:45, depending
Probably
on-
5:45 most of the time, as we've been
Well,
doing.
yes, okay.
Correct.
That makes things a little bit tight, but still doable.
Got a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. Discussion?
Little history that it was scheduled that way because of the commuters from the cities in particular in the winter. And it was for residents and council and staff that couldn't get there in time, so that's why it was done that way.
Has it always been 7, Randy, like your time on it?
Since I've been on, yeah,
When does public safety meet? What time?
5.
I know Parks meets at 5, and I know Public Works meets at 5. Is there any other committees that meet at 7?
We changed Plan Commission and moved that to 6.
And Public Utilities meets at 6.
Yeah. So most all of our other ones, I mean, 7, council's the only one that has these 7 o'clock start time.
Right.
I guess the one concern I have is that making it accessible for people for public comment, and they're, balancing their work life and wanting to be an engaged citizen. That's the one concern I have. Listen, I want to be in bed by 10, so I'm with you. But I want to just make sure that we have it so that citizens have an opportunity to get here after work.
Totally get it. And I mean, we could also juggle, I know the mayor's talked about this, doing public comments toward the end of the meeting or a different time in the meeting too, if we needed to juggle it or something. So probably different ways you could work that.
Totally.
And then to clarify, if the council does approve this, it will have to come back next meeting as an ordinance, because it is actually in our ordinance, our start time.
Okay.
So we'd make an amendment, and then it would, you would approve it tonight basically, but we'll bring it back as an ordinance for official approval next meeting.
So once it's approved, the ordinance, then it would go into effect.
Right.
Probably that October
Yep.
meeting.
So it would be in October, this change would take effect then, yeah.
And in that ordinance, is that where we could set up when public comment would be, or?
We don't have that much detail. We have, I'd have to look to make sure here, but I don't know that our ordinance actually states the setting of the agenda in that much detail, other than just I think it's just the general order of business, but it doesn't detail anything that we have to do. So I would say that that would be more of a council decision on how to set the agenda, not something that needs to be put in ordinance. Let's see. Oops. Wow, that's just going to keep rolling. Our ordinance just says it is an order of business in the ordinance. So no, actually it would be correct if we wanted, let's see. It says the business of the council should be tucked in the following order, except that the presiding officer may change the order of business as he or she deems necessary. So we do have citizen comments and suggestions from citizens present coming in with the way we have it now. So if for some reason we did want to change that, then I would recommend we should update the ordinance and that ordinance as well to show it coming in later. It would make sense to, if we decided to do that route. Otherwise, it's a different ordinance as far as the different section of the ordinance as far as the start time. So they're not mutually inclusive, that we'd have to change them both at the same time.
I guess just the other point is, and I really don't have a lot, I care which way it goes, I guess, but maybe if some of us would shut up more at night, we'd be able to get, maybe, we get more done, but I just think it's easier for citizens to come when it's a little later. And, it's our job. We stay until it's done. A 10:30 meeting that's a small meeting. That's when you get closer to 1, then that's when you get a little irritated and maybe come up with this change. But I don't see it wouldn't hurt to leave it.
I would think we might want to look at it as a trial period, and at some point, 6 months from now, 3 months from now, say, let's look at it. What have we heard? Has it hurt our citizen input, which I think is important, or our visibility? So from that perspective, I could see it as an experiment to see, does this work? It addresses one issue, does it create another?
The thing that I can keep coming back to with it is looking at somebody who's not in this seat for the future, right? And constricting a person that may want to join or may want to run for council, may want to do this seat, is changing that time to an earlier time, ruling out some of those people, because it is twice a month that they would have to be here, I mean, if they're a commuter or whatever. That would be the thing that I would be concerned about, that and public comment.
And winter sticks out the worst. I just don't want to see people rush, either the council staff or our citizens. And we've allowed the opportunity for council to get on Zoom if need be, but rushing in the winter, there's no reason to rush. This is not, life-threatening importance.
And just wondering about our city employees who are so great to be here and stay for the full time. Is it something that they don't have to stay for the full time if the agenda item doesn't pertain to them?
Yeah, I mean, technically, they would not have to. I mean, we have had sometimes things come up towards the end that aren't maybe on the agenda. We're not having a full discussion, but
You need their
they may
input.
be weighing in on something. And oftentimes, we have things that may not seem to have anything to do with that department. But then when the conversation picks up, all of a sudden, it would be good to have somebody from engineering or public works weighing in on it, even though it has nothing to do with them technically, but they can provide some insight as a department head. So it's preferable, actually, that they do.
I think in the past of history, they were required, department heads
Yep.
were required to be at meetings.
And we've been trying to be more flexible with that.
So they could do Zoom if they
Yeah,
needed to.
we've been trying to be respectful too of, if there's really nothing on the agenda for them and we look through, we don't really see a lot, but we still have some of our bigger department heads actually do still come to everyone because they probably will have input on almost every item at some point, maybe. And it's just better to have them here. And it's like Randy said, it's better to have them here for that reason.
Those questions come up.
Yep, they do. So that's why. And I think it is important.
I think it's good for them to hear the discussion of what we're thinking about, whether we're right or wrong, and they can straighten us out later. But it's an opportunity to know what our thinking is and say, wow, okay, yeah, I get the sense of what the council wants to do. We may not know how to do it, but this is what we want to do, the kind of behavior or appearance or policy. So I think from that perspective, I like having the staff, the key staff people here.
Correct. And I agree with that very much.
I guess listening to Jim's point and Randy's point, I wonder if it might be better just to say, what if we did like a 6 p.m., like the April organizing meeting through, the end of September or something like that, and then met the 7 o'clock for your point about the winter kind of thing. I think that's a valid point. So you do your spring, summer, just early fall, September 6 for kind of the reasons stated, and then you'd just kick it back to 7. And then that would also give us the data that you're talking about too, Jim. You'd look at them both and sort of say, does one work better or something like that? And if you guys like that, I'd be willing to change the amendment to that, or the proposal, not the amendment, sorry, the motion to that.
I like that idea. If we decided to do something temporary, would we still have to change the ordinance, or?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Yeah, your ordinance specifically says 7 o'clock on the first and third Monday of each month.
okay, so we would have to temporarily change the ordinance and then change it back if we decided to change it back.
Correct.
Okay.
Or
You can state it in the ordinance.
You can state it in the ordinance, yes. Mhm.
Correct, or if Paul's proposal was 6 o'clock for these months and 7 o'clock for these months, and we would just include that specifically in the ordinance.
Can we propose this so that the council would have so the ordinance would say that the council will have flexibility in determining start time for the council meetings?
Yeah, you could do by resolution, couldn't we? Can we make it say that the council meeting dates and times will be set by resolution? I mean, it's like what we do with our fee schedule, so we don't have to update our ordinance every time we update our
Yeah.
fees. We just say that our fee schedule will be set by resolution. So you could say that the regular meeting start times will be set by resolution of the council. And then you don't have to go back and change an ordinance every time, because every time we do an ordinance, we have to publish, we have to update online, our ordinance books, all those sort of things. Where if we do it by resolution, it's a much simpler process and cheaper, to be honest.
Why don't we vote, or why don't we just
Paul?
wait till the vote until next week when we have an ordinance in front of us, so we get a week to think and
I like that.
ask somebody,
I like
ask some
that.
people,
That's fine.
staff.
So we could just change the motion to empowering city staff to come up with a new ordinance?
Yep.
Is that what you're thinking, Randy?
Something like that.
Well,
We wouldn't even
we
need
can
a
draft the
motion.
ordinance,
Yeah,
and
we
you can
don't
fill in
need
the
a
blanks
motion.
at the next meeting if you'd like, in terms of what those hours are.
I'm
Or
saying
what the
just
start
give
time
us a
is.
week, or
Two.
2
Couple
weeks.
weeks to think about, yeah. I think that's fair.
Okay. Is that good?
So then I withdraw the original motion and the
Okay.
second motion and the whatever other
All
motions I just
motions.
made the last 5 minutes.
And I'll second all of that.
All right. Discussion possible action on a development agreement between the City of Hudson and Hudson Ventures LLC, Boucher Apartment.
Our community development director was not able to attend tonight, unfortunately, due to an illness in the family. So if there's any questions, he's available via Zoom to answer them.
This is out of plan commission as well. It's just a matter of the agreement to move forward. It doesn't bind us to anything. It's just for the development agreement. So I will move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Discussion?
Randy, can you just give us a snippet of the planning? What kind of discussion?
We don't have a full plan yet. I mean, we've seen a peek of it, but it's not, have you seen it?
Yeah, we've seen the.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
There he is.
I can barely hear you, but this one actually, we did approve the final development plans at the last council meeting. We just needed to have the actual development agreement that basically outlines the roles and responsibilities and the obligations of the developer in terms of infrastructure improvements to the access onto Old 35. This agreement does not address the parkland dedication component. That will come back to council. It's not a dedication or the purchase of the property. There's about a little over 2.5 acres on the western half of that subject parcel. That will come back within the next meeting or two to wrap that up. But this does finalize that development project at Hanley and Old 35.
And it added what our concerns were in there, Paul.
Okay,
Right, Mike?
Yes.
sounds good. Thank
Where's
you.
the development agreement?
Yeah, it sounded like we were gonna get one sent to us, and I didn't see one on there, so.
It's in the packet. It was uploaded, I'm not sure, this morning.
Yeah, so we got it. We had, obviously, Attorney Vivian had a conflict. Obviously, he represented a developer in this case. So we actually had another attorney that we use for labor relations. They also have some land use attorneys. We had that individual review it just to make sure that we were covered on our end from the city's perspective. And that just took until end of last week. So we got it out today.
Sorry, you should have got the notice that the agenda was updated with this, and maybe it didn't come through the.
No, I didn't see anything.
Okay, because it did get added onto it.
And I know I looked this morning
It's
before I
not
went to
into
work. So this is the first time I'm seeing it.
Okay.
So it's on the website now, is what you're saying?
It should be in,
It's at
it
page
should be in the
58.
agenda packet all the way, through the app too as well.
And regarding the final engineering plans, we got the final engineering plans. We just had some like smaller comments we were still just working through, but nothing major at this point in time, if I recall correctly, Mike.
Yep, correct. And approval of this would authorize staff to go in and finalize. We still need to get a couple attachments in there, get those final plans wrapped up, attached, as well as the construction schedule.
Okay, so is it pretty much like the next one?
It's the same agreement as the Hudson Physicians agreement.
Okay.
As Mike said, I have a conflict because these were my last two development projects in transitioning into this role. So that the city worked with independent counsel. We provided a draft of the agreement. Outside counsel then reviewed both documents. They're the same form. They're the same format.
Mm-hmm.
And principally, they cover the obligations, which in some are to follow the construction plans that have been submitted to Dean and his engineering team, and then to construct the public improvements for each one, and then to secure the completion of those public improvements with a letter of credit that the city can draw on if the public improvements aren't completed to the specifics as approved by the engineering department. So it's the same.
So again, the developer pays for it. Plus, there's a warranty period, right, for another 2 years after it for the public improvements. So it just secures that performance and makes sure that it occurs.
Right. It is the same form as the Hudson Physicians Development Agreement as well, which you have in the
Correct.
packet.
And Mike, this is Paul here. Are you comfortable with the agreement? I don't have access to reading it here because I don't have the internet here, but are you good with the agreement?
Yeah, I'm very confident with both, especially after having both Von Briesen, like I said, our labor attorney, as well as Freiberger that does our tax increment district agreements. They've reviewed both of these, and the comments were pretty much the same. So, and it wasn't much. So, yeah, we're comfortable with it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Do we have a motion?
Yep, in a second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion possible action on a development agreement between the City of Hudson, Hudson Physicians Property Company LLC, and Hudson Physicians SC, Hudson Physicians Development.
They should look pretty similar.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. I don't have anything. Anybody? I hope everybody had a good Labor Day. That's about it.
Can we get an update on the PPE or whatever funds that?
Yep. Still haven't got final guidance, so we're still a little hesitant to roll out have the council really discussed too much until we get that. The deadline for this, mostly states, but for comment to the federal government was July 15th. We thought we'd have it by August 15th, and we don't. So as far as we know so far, most cities are kind of in the same boat as us. They don't want to make any final decisions. So internally, we've got this kind of ever-growing list of different things. Sure. And we will be bringing it to the council as soon as we get final guidance. It's just, I don't think it makes sense to make any decisions until you know for sure what's all eligible or not. And we have, 3 years to spend it. So we're not in a rush with it. But we do want to make sure the council has a conversation knowing exactly what would be eligible or not. So it's coming. We're waiting on the federal government's answer, so sooner than later.
And I have two quick things. I just want to thank everybody in the city for how incredible they've been with the Highway 35 2nd Street.
Yeah.
Dean, Mike, everybody at City Hall has been absolutely fantastic. Our police department, incredible. And our residents and business owners, patients of absolute saints, and holy moly, that was a big deal, and we are almost through it. I mentioned to Aaron earlier that Dean had said, hey, the light's at the end of the tunnel, and it is not a train. And I think that just sums it up great. So you guys, awesome work, awesome to our community. And then could we just get a quick update on the DEI committee and just kind of where that's at for people that are watching so that they know what to expect?
Yep, just quickly, we had anticipated that we'd be doing the appointments at this meeting. We have some council members that needed a little more time, mostly just for either lack of applicants or just not able to connect with some of the applicants. So we wanted to respect each of the council members' ability to make the appointment they feel is best fit. So we did delay it, but we intend to have it on our next agenda, the appointments.
Thank you.
And what is the plan for doing the redistricting?
That's another fun one. We just got that information from the county literally today, I believe, if not yesterday. And so what has to happen now is our GIS person will take a look at it. The county gives us their draft of their commissioner districts. And we want to try to line up our aldermanic districts as close as possible with theirs, but that's not always feasible because we have to also make sure that we have our population balance right. So our GIS person's working on it right now. It looks like we will have to do some changes to some of the council seat districts to balance out those populations because we see, obviously you see growth in some areas, not others. So there will be some changes, but from what we've seen preliminarily, it won't be anything major for anybody. Some will lose, some will gain, but it won't be, as far as we can tell so far, nothing major. It'll be some shifting of boundaries, that's all. And that should be coming back. We have a tight time frame, so next meeting, we should have that in front of you, because we have a real tight time frame to get it done just because of the census data being so delayed this year.
I'd like to mention that the St. Croix County Community Development Committee will be meeting on September 16th at 5 p.m. at the courthouse to discuss maintaining the loop trail at Holton year-round. Right now they do not. Stillwater does maintain their half of it, and then it goes to ice and snow. And I think it would be time for us to support that committee in making that decision.
Anybody else?
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.